The first time grown women cornered my 15-year-old daughter and told her she was an unchristian disgrace, I learned something important. Cruelty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles, clutches a Bible, and calls itself righteous. And when people like that decide you're their enemy, they don't expect you to keep receipts. If you've ever been underestimated, lied about, or pushed to stay silent for the sake of peace, this story is for you. Subscribe, like, and settle in, because sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or prayers. Sometimes it comes from patience, evidence, and impeccable timing. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I'm a mother. I'm 46, and I survived a marriage that ended in betrayal so deep it split my family down the middle. My ex-husband died last year. An accident, sudden, violent, final. People like to think death cleans the slate. It doesn't, it just freezes everything in its ugliest form. By the time he died, we were already mid-divorce. Papers filed, lawyers involved, lines drawn. And the reason for that divorce was simple, even if the fallout wasn't. He cheated. Not a one-time mistake, not a drunken regret. A full-blown affair that resulted in 2 baby boys with another woman. A woman who also died shortly after him. 2 infants orphaned overnight. And suddenly the lie my ex had been living exploded into a tragedy no one knew how to place. No one, except my daughters. They were 17 and 15 when they found out. Not me. They found the messages, the photos, the truth their father had been hiding while coming home every night and asking how their homework was. I will never forget the sound my eldest made when she told me. It wasn't crying. It was something hollow, like air leaving a punctured tire. That sound still lives in my chest. Therapy started almost immediately, not because I forced it, but because they asked. And that's how I knew the damage went deeper than anger. My ex's parents, my former in-laws, did not grieve quietly. They are 78 and 80, devout, vocal, respected in their church, and convinced that everything wrong in their son's life was my fault. After his death, they didn't come asking how the girls were doing. They came with demands. First, they wanted custody of my daughters, not visits, not shared holidays, custody. As if losing their father wasn't already enough, they wanted to rip them out of the only stable home they had left. When that failed, they pivoted. They wanted to move in with us. I didn't hesitate. No, not, we'll discuss it. Not, let's see how things go. Never. And that was the moment they stopped pretending to be civil. A few weeks later, life tried to feel normal again. Where we live, there's a weekend farmer's market. Fresh bread, honey, eggs still warm from the morning, the kind of place that smells like cinnamon and soil and peace. It was my youngest daughter's birthday week. Her party wasn't until later in the month, but I wanted to give her something simple, something joyful, something that didn't involve lawyers or therapists or whispered phone calls. So I handed her some cash and said, "Go wild." She laughed, said she was buying chocolate first. I watched her disappear into the crowd. Messy ponytail, oversized hoodie, still a kid even after everything. An hour passed, then another 15 minutes. The unease crept in slowly. A mother's instinct doesn't scream at first. It hums. Just as I pulled out my phone, it rang. Her name. I answered, smiling. I stopped smiling immediately. She was crying, hard, gasping. "Mum," she said, "there are these women. They won't leave me alone." Something cold slid down my spine. I grabbed my eldest and ran. I found them near the flower stalls. 6 older women, grey hair, church clothes, tight smiles, and my daughter, backed against a table, clutching her shopping bag like a shield. They were talking over her. At her, not listening, calling her unchristian, saying she was selfish for not spending time with her paternal grandparents, saying she was cruel for not wanting to be a good big sister to her poor, orphaned baby brothers. Baby brothers she never asked for. Baby brothers born from the betrayal that shattered her family. She looked so small. I stepped between them without thinking, told my eldest, calmly, to take her sister's things, pay, and go to the car. Then I turned around. I recognized 3 of the women immediately, from my ex-in-law's church. And they recognized me too. Their faces hardened. They told me I was worse than my daughter, that I had refused to obey my ex-in-laws like a good Christian wife. I don't remember everything I said after that. I remember my hands shaking, my voice echoing too loudly, the word barf actually leaving my mouth when one of them said submission was my duty. The yelling drew attention. Vendors stopped smiling. People stared. Eventually, security asked all of us to leave. The women followed me to the parking lot like vultures, still muttering prayers and judgments. I got my girls into the car and locked the doors. My youngest was shaking. I drove away with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. That night, after they were asleep, I couldn't rest. The house was quiet, but my head wasn't. So I messaged someone from that church, a man I was still on good terms with, someone reasonable. I told him what happened. He apologised. Then he told me the truth. My ex-mother-in-law had posted a massive story in the church's Facebook group, a tragedy, a plea, a masterpiece of manipulation. According to her, we were monsters. We were leaving them homeless and penniless, ignoring them, stealing their grandchildren. She claimed my daughters were the reason she lost her grandsons, boys who were now living with distant relatives. She never mentioned the affair, never mentioned cheating. Instead, she said the other woman had been our surrogate, that I couldn't have more children, that I rejected the babies because they were boys. I stared at my screen, numb. That lie sat there, collecting sympathy and praise. And I realised something then, sitting alone in the dark. They weren't just trying to hurt me anymore. They were rewriting history, and if I didn't stop them, they'd win. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant whoosh of cars passing on wet pavement, the uneven rhythm of my own heartbeat. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed. Notifications. More comments on that Facebook post. More prayers. More standing with you, sister. More thinly veiled accusations about my failure as a wife and mother. Each vibration felt like a finger poking a bruise. I wanted to respond. God, I wanted to respond. I typed and deleted paragraphs, screenshots, long explanations that no one asked for. But something stopped me. Experience. I had learned the hard way that arguing with people who thrive on moral superiority is like screaming into a church bell, loud, exhausting, and completely pointless. They didn't want truth. They wanted a villain, and they had already chosen me. The next morning, I made breakfast like everything was normal. Toast popped, eggs sizzled. My youngest barely ate. She flinched when her phone buzzed. "Did they message you?" I asked gently. She nodded. I didn't need to ask who they were. My eldest sat quietly, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the table. When I finally took their phones and read the messages, something inside me cracked. Passive-aggressive scripture quotes. Long lectures about forgiveness. One message simply said, "Your father would be ashamed of you." Sent 2 days after his funeral, I put the phones down very carefully. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. Therapy sessions intensified after that. Their therapist used words like secondary trauma and religious coercion. I used words like rage and helplessness, mostly in my head, because I was trying so hard to be the calm one, the stable one, the mother who didn't fall apart. But every night after the lights were off, I felt it pressing on my chest. The injustice, the audacity, the way my ex-in-laws had turned grief into a weapon. They didn't stop. They escalated. Church members accidentally ran into us at the grocery store. Someone left a pamphlet about forgiveness on my windshield. Another woman cornered my eldest outside her school and asked if she'd prayed about reuniting the family. My daughters stopped wanting to go anywhere alone. The farmer's market, once our happy place, was off limits. And through all of this, my ex-in-laws played innocent. They sent emails through their lawyer about custody. They spoke sweetly in public. They cried online. And every time I saw my ex-mother-in-law's name pop up, my hands shook. What made it worse, what truly twisted the knife, was the hypocrisy. That church was many things. Conservative, judgmental, loud about who belonged and who didn't. But they had one rule they enforced ruthlessly: cheating. Infidelity was unforgivable, publicly shamed, marriage ending. Men had been expelled for less. So how had she gotten away with it? Simple. She rewrote the story. Surrogacy, rejection, cruel wife, ungrateful daughters. And because the affair partner was dead, there was no one left to contradict her. Except me. I spent days pacing my house, replaying everything. Every argument, every compromise I made to keep the peace. Every time I swallowed my anger for the sake of appearances. And I realised something terrifying. They thought I was weak. They thought grief had softened me, that I'd stay quiet because it was the Christian thing to do, that I'd protect my dead husband's reputation even after he destroyed us. They were wrong. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. I opened my mailbox and found 2 letters addressed to my daughters, handwritten, from church members. One told my youngest she should be ashamed for abandoning her blood. The other said my eldest would regret this rebellion when judgment comes. I stood there on my porch, letters shaking in my hands, and felt a strange calm settle over me. Not peace, focus. I went inside, placed the letters neatly on the kitchen table and sat down. I stared at them for a long time. Then I whispered out loud to an empty room, enough. The truth was I had everything, every message, every photo, every confession. Because when my ex and I started the divorce, I'd prepared for war. I'd saved screenshots, downloaded backups, archived emails, not for revenge, for protection. And because the divorce wasn't finalised when he died, there were no legal restrictions tying my hands. No gag orders, no settlements, just facts. Facts my ex-in-laws had forgotten existed. That night I opened my laptop and began organising. Folder after folder, dates, names, context, photos of my ex kissing another woman in our living room. Texts where he begged me not to tell the girls. Messages from his parents acknowledging the affair and supporting it. And then there were the messages to my daughters, the worst ones, calling them bastards, blaming them for their father's death, telling them God punished him because they exposed the truth. 2 days after the accident, I closed my laptop slowly. My hands didn't shake this time. I wasn't crying, I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating. I knew if I went online and dumped everything, they'd spin it. Call it bitterness, call it revenge, call it ungodly behaviour. No. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it their way. Quiet, respectable, and devastating. The next morning, I took the day off work. I kissed my girls goodbye, told them I had errands and drove to a print shop across town. The kind that does wedding albums, funeral programmes, church materials. The clerk smiled and asked what the occasion was. I smiled back. Closure, I said. And that was the moment I stopped being their victim. The print shop smelled like ink and warm paper. The clerk, young, cheerful, blissfully unaware, asked if I wanted standard copies or premium. I chose premium. Thick paper, high-resolution colour, the kind you'd expect for wedding photos or memorial programmes. I watched the printer hum to life as the first image slid out. My ex-husband, our living room, his mouth on another woman's neck. The clarity was unforgiving. I didn't flinch, I didn't cry, I nodded. Yes, I said softly. That one too. For hours I stood there approving proofs, screenshots of text conversations, email chains, timestamps highlighted in neat yellow, messages from his parents acknowledging the affair. It's not ideal, but we'll support you. Messages harassing me for filing for divorce. And finally, the ones sent to my daughters. I hesitated there. The clerk glanced at me. Everything okay? I swallowed. Yes, I said. They need to be seen. Because silence was what had protected them so far, and silence had done enough damage. I paid extra for binding services, not staples, binders, small, neat, soft covers. When I got home, I spread everything across my dining table like a war map. The house was quiet, too quiet. I turned on soft music, not for comfort but to mark time. Then I began assembling. Each binder was deliberate, measured, cruel only in its honesty. I chose covers that looked exactly like the church's hymn packets, off-white, understated, familiar, the kind no one questioned. The first page was always the same, that photo, My ex and his affair partner, caught mid-kiss. Different hair, different skin tone, impossible to confuse. Underneath, in neat handwriting, ex-husband's name, an affair partner's name, a love story. No commentary, no insults, just truth. The next pages unfolded slowly. Messages, confessions, dates. And then near the back, the final section. Screenshots of my ex-in-law's messages to my daughters. I didn't annotate those either. I let their words stand on their own. I worked for hours. My back ached, my fingers cramped. But with every binder completed, something inside me felt lighter, not happy, steady, in control. The plan was simple, and that was why it would work. That church had a table near the entrance. Hymnals, spare programs, prayer packets, self-serve, unmonitored. I'd seen it 100 times. So the following Sunday, I dressed plainly, no makeup, hair pulled back, neutral clothes. I didn't want attention, I wanted invisibility. I arrived early. The parking lot was still filling when I walked in carrying a tote bag. My heart beat fast, but not from fear, from anticipation. The sanctuary smelled like old wood and coffee. Sunlight filtered through stained glass. I moved calmly, quietly. One binder at a time, I placed them on the table, between hymn packets, under songbooks, blending in perfectly. I didn't rush. I didn't linger. I left before the service started. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking, but I was smiling. Not because it was over, but because it had begun. I didn't attend that church anymore, but Facebook does wonders. By mid-afternoon, the first post appeared. Vague, confused. Does anyone know what those booklets were about today? Then screenshots, anger, shock, outrage. Names were called, not mine, not my daughter's, theirs. The pastor intervened publicly within hours, urging restraint and reminding everyone to keep discussions PG-13. Too late, the gossip mill had teeth, and it was hungry. My phone buzzed non-stop, messages from people I barely remembered, apologies, questions, silence from my ex-in-laws. That silence was loud. That evening I sat on my couch, tea cooling in my hands, watching it unfold. People were furious, not just about the cheating, but about the lies, about the bullying, about the manipulation. My ex-in-laws were being dragged, not by me, but by their own community, using their own rules, their own morals, their own outrage. It was poetic. 2 days later, I received mail, apology letters, handwritten, addressed to my daughters, admitting they'd been misled, inviting us back to the church for support. I laughed, a real laugh, one that startled me with its sound. The final blow came quietly, a post from my ex-mother-in-law, public, victimised. How alienated we feel. How no one cares for the elderly anymore. How she wished her great son were still alive to take care of them. I stared at the screen. With what money, I wondered, since I had been the breadwinner. But I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because by then, they were already gone. The church didn't make an announcement. They didn't have to. One Sunday, my ex-in-laws simply weren't there. No front row smiles, no loud amens, no whispered gossip followed by performative hugs. They vanished. And in a place where visibility is currency, disappearance is the harshest sentence of all. I heard it through a mutual acquaintance first. They asked them to leave, she said quietly over the phone. Not officially, but strongly. The phrase strongly encouraged floated in the air between us. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat at my kitchen table and let myself breathe. Really breathe. For the first time in months, my shoulders weren't pressed up around my ears. The custody case didn't magically disappear. But something shifted. Their lawyer's email softened. The language changed. No more moral grandstanding, just legalities, just reality. They no longer had a community backing their narrative, and without that, they were just two elderly people trying to control what they'd already lost. The most important change, though, happened at home. My daughters slept, deeply. My youngest stopped checking over her shoulder in public. My eldest laughed again, loudly, carelessly, like she used to before adulthood arrived too early. One night, my youngest hugged me and said, "Thank you for believing us." I held her so tightly, she complained I was squishing her. I didn't let go. I never returned to that church. I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't need their support. Justice doesn't require permission. The will issue surfaced briefly. It turned out my ex-husband had named his parents as beneficiaries without telling me. He'd promised our daughters. He lied. But in the end, it didn't matter. The life insurance and personal accounts went where they legally belonged, and I never corrected the rumours about my ex-in-laws being penniless. Some lies deserve to suffocate under their own weight. Occasionally, I still see my ex-mother-in-law's posts. She writes about loneliness, about betrayal, about how no one respects elders anymore. I don't respond. I don't block her either, because I want her to know that I see it, that I remember. That silence, when chosen, is power. People ask me if I feel guilty, for exposing everything, for humiliating them in their own community. I always give the same answer: no. Because I didn't create the truth. I just stopped protecting people who didn't deserve it. Revenge doesn't always look like screaming or destruction. Sometimes it looks like organisation, like patience, like letting people trip over the lies they stacked themselves on. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. When someone tries to control the story, they're terrified of the facts, and when they try to shame you into silence, that's when you open the binder. My daughters are healing, not because their father died, not because the church turned its back on their grandparents, but because they learned something vital. Truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be undeniable. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been blamed, shamed, or pushed into silence, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes the final receipt is the truth itself.